Now, without any further delay, coming to tonight's session on design thinking for non-designers. Let me give an introduction to our very acclaimed and admired speaker of tonight, Lital Sherman. Lital is a driven designer, leader, strategist, and a storyteller with 15 years experience of implementing human-centric design practices into the development processes of some of the tech market leaders. She's passionate about utilizing design thinking to drive a positive culture change in our lives and believes that by understanding human behaviors, motivations, and biases, we will be with us tonight. Handing the session over to you now.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So let me just quickly share my screen. Great. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining my talk this evening. My name is Lital, and I'm the head of experience design at PageUp. It's a talent management software company from Melbourne, Australia. So I'm joining you from Australia. It's actually very late at night here. It's 1:30 a.m. So I am very, very excited to join you and to share my talk with you. So today I'm going to talk to you about my favorite tool for problem solving, which is design thinking. And traditionally, design thinking is a tool that has been used by designers. However, today I want to try to challenge that. And I really hope that I'll be able to convince you that design is really everyone's job, and every single one of you can adopt and apply design thinking to their day-to-day job. So I actually want to start by a poll to understand just the different roles that we have here today. So Shama, can you just run the poll, please?
Yeah, just give me a moment.
Thank you. Nice, it's really interesting, very diverse group of people we have here. All right, so we have about 80% of people voted. And it's a really interesting mix of people we have. And I'm really interested to understand who the others are, but we can maybe discuss it a bit later. All right, let me close that. Great. So I want to start by sharing a little story with you. So the idea for this talk came to me about 2 years ago at PageUp. It was only about 3 months after I joined the company as the new head of design. And my job was to grow and manage a very successful design team, but also to find opportunities across the business in applying design thinking and really understanding how different parts of the business are working, and to bring design closer to the different teams and the different business units. So the first thing I've done is to assess the UX design and research maturity across the business. I started with the product development teams, first of all, because they didn't really have designers within those teams. But then I expanded it and I explored in other parts of the business, like sales and implementation teams and account executives and so on. And what I realized was the design maturity was actually very, very low across the business. So I came up with an idea to run a company-wide 2-day design thinking event and to involve as many people as I could from all across the business, because I really wanted them to experience what good design process is all about. Now, I definitely aimed high. To remind you, it was only 3 months after I joined the company. So people didn't really knew who I was. So I need to convince the top management and to sell them the idea of allowing their employees to take 2 days off their day-to-day job and join my event. That was actually the easy part. I also needed to sell this idea to the different people from across the business. So the engineers, the product managers, product owners, people from marketing, people from sales and so on, because I really wanted everyone to have this opportunity. So that was really not an easy task. That involved a lot of preparation and a lot of presentations and a lot of convincing and a lot of selling to explain to them why they should join and why they should be involved in my workshop. So long story short, after 2 months of selling the idea, doing preparation, a lot of admin work that was involved, I did actually run a 2-day design thinking event. So overall, I had about 50% of the company join the event. I had 108 people from across the business from 3 different countries, which is Australia, Singapore, and the Philippines. We had 12 teams, 5 facilitators, including myself as the main facilitator. And we had about 10,000 Post-it notes, as you can see in one of the photos here. The Post-it notes were physical, but also virtual. So because we had 3 different countries involved in that, I really wanted to have a collaboration between the different offices. And you can see in the one of the photos here, that was really around remote collaboration. And we had a team from Manila here, and if you can see, it's pretty small, but if you can see, there are people joining from different, from working from home, from different offices, with me here, just happy that everyone is collaborating together. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, because this really shows that design thinking and the process can be done remotely as well. We don't have to be together in a physical space to be able to collaborate and solve the problem in a design thinking, by utilizing the design thinking process. So because we only had 2 days for the entire event, we decided not to focus on our customer problems, because it takes time to run interviews and to recruit people and to identify problems, which I'll touch on a little bit later. But instead, what we decided to do was to use this process to solve internal problems. And every business has internal problems. So we decided to focus on things that we already know that are problems, but just to utilize the design thinking in solving those problems, our pain points, right? So the employees' pain points. So even though the event didn't have a lot to do with our products or with our customers, it has everything to do with our employees and everything to do with their experience, their engagement, their collaboration and communication. So this is the 2 days event that we've done. So day 1 was really all about the inspiration. What is the problem and what is the problem that we're about to solve? Remind you, and I'm sure that you can all relate to that, every business or every team has many, many, many problems, right? And if you look at our customers have many, many problems. It's really all about understanding those problems and defining the problem, the one problem that you're going to solve. So this is what we've done in day 1. Everyone had the opportunity to do research. So they've done interviews, they sent surveys, and again, I'll touch about it a little bit later. I'll expand what it actually means. So that was day 1. We wanted every single person in the team to understand and align to the problems that they're going to solve. And day 2 was all about finding the right solution to this problem. So designing the right solution and testing it by running an experiment, if that's actually the right solution to the problem that they identified in day 1. At the end of day 2, every team presented their work, their process, and the outcome. Now, I didn't say it before, but when I joined the company, and that was 3 months for me into the new position, I only had 3 designers in my team back then, and I did grow the team since. To remind you, I already told you that we had 12 teams in this event and 108 people, which means that basically most of the teams didn't have a designer. And we had one winning team that didn't have a designer at all. And they've done all the process by themselves without a designer. And this gave me this aha moment. And this is really what I'm going to talk to you about today. The design thinking is not an exclusive property of designers. And every single one of you can adopt and apply design thinking. And I do realize that there are some designers here, which is absolutely amazing. And for designers, it's really all about facilitating the design thinking process and including others and bringing people together for engagement, for collaboration, which will bring you much better results. What I love about design thinking is that designers' work process can help every one of us to extract valuable information and apply human-centered technique to solve problems in creative and innovative way. It can be in our designs, it can be in technical solution design, but it can also be in our businesses, in our lives, even in countries. So basically everyone can and should go through a design thinking process and apply it to every problem that you face. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced, and maybe that you still experience, the traditional way of working, what we call the waterfall way of working. So someone will write a very big business case. It can be 100 pages or even more. It's mainly based on many assumptions. It might be based on some market research, some competitor analysis, some trends in the market and things like that. But what they're actually missing is the valuable information from the real users. So they'll write this business case, they'll hand it over to the BA or the product owner, and this person will create the requirements, and then they will hand it over, those requirements, to the designer, and then the designer will create a very pretty design, and that's really what was the responsibility of the designer for at least until about 10 years ago, when it was all about make it pretty, make it usable, but not a lot more. And then the development team will take those designs and they will build the feature or the solution based on the design that they got from the designer. And then it will go to the QA that can test the feature and make sure everything is working well. And then it might go to a release engineer, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure you all know, this waterfall way of working. But what it does, it creates silos in organizations, and it leads people to focus only on their small part of the process, instead of looking at the whole end-to-end life cycle of the product and also the process. It also means the decisions are being made mainly based on management assumption, and the loudest voice in the room usually is the one that make all the decisions. And we all know that the most senior person in the room doesn't necessarily have the best ideas, right? A lot of the time, I will be the most senior person in the room, and I know that my ideas are not necessarily the best ideas in the room. And this is why when I go in and try to solve a problem, I will always use design thinking, and I will always bring people together, because collaboration and diversity of thinking, this is where good ideas and good outcomes will come from. All right. So the question now is, what is actually design thinking? And now I actually want to run the second poll with the question of how knowledgeable are you with design thinking? So I'll wait for Shama. Great. Or how experienced are you with design thinking? All right, great participation. Thank you, everyone. So most of you are not experienced at all. Great. That's that's a great thing for me, because I can actually tell you all about it. But there is really a mix here of people with a little bit of experience, somewhat experience, and two people that are very experienced. So that's also really great. All right, so I'll close the poll now. All right. So design thinking is a methodology and an approach, first of all. And it's all about creative problem solving. Now, it focuses on the people that we're trying to impact. It focuses on their needs, on their goals, their pain points, and their behavior. If we only look at the more traditional market research, like I told you before, that, this is like the waterfall way and the traditional, that people only do, the market research and only focus on big data and only focus on numbers, we miss a really big component, which is the human behind those numbers. Design thinking focuses on qualitative research and observation that get us to empathize and truly understand the needs of the actual people that we're servicing. When done right, design thinking can help us to step away from our biases. I don't know if you heard about this, if you ever heard this sentence, fall in love with the problem and not the solution. This is a really important thing to say, and this is a very known saying in the design community. It's really, really important when we approach design thinking to not start with a solution, but to actually start with a problem. And it's also important to understand that as human beings, we're all biased, right? We all know what we know, and it's really, really hard for us to know other things because we just don't know, right? The only experience that we have is our own personal experience. However, we need to remember that when we solve problems to others, when we work on products, when we work on technology, on services, we're actually solving problems for other people. And while we're doing that, it's really important that we remember that our assumptions and what we know and our biases, which are absolutely okay that we have them because we are human beings, we need to remember to put them on the side and to utilize the design thinking that can help us remove those biases and to think and empathize with the people that we are trying to impact. And this is probably the basic understanding of design thinking and the most important thing about that. Again, we all have assumptions. I have assumptions. I have my biases, absolutely. But when it's important for us to recognize that. But when we go to solve a problem, we need, again, to not to forget that, not to completely ignore what we're thinking, but just to put it on the side while we're going through this process and truly understand what people are feeling, thinking, and their behavior. Now, typically design has been the responsibility of designers, right? And I touched on that. So why should product manager, why should tech leads, why should developers, why should other people be thinking about that, right? So why should you adopt design thinking? So let's start with product managers, right? Design thinking is becoming a skill that is needed for product managers and product leaders. And I see now a lot of job ads and for product managers, and design thinking is usually a must, right? So if you are in product management, I highly recommend you to start adopting design thinking and get your hands dirty and start practicing that as well. Now, for all of you that are not product managers, you might not have the need to lead design thinking, but if you will adopt and utilize that, it will help you to solve problems better. And you should probably be involved in design thinking workshops across the business that your product managers will run or your designers will run, but it will also help you to manage your teams better, to collaborate with your team members, to collaborate with other people across the business. So I highly encourage all of you to start thinking about that. So, in my opinion, product managers must have the understanding of design thinking, and there are a few reasons for that. So first of all, unfortunately, not every team has a designer. In some companies, design is still a nice to have component. It's not a must have component, which will give this responsibility to the product manager. And that's what I've seen pretty much in every company. So this is a really important thing to remember. If you don't have a designer, it will be on you, right? So if you will utilize design thinking, it will help you to come up with better solutions and build better products that your customers will love. Now, even the more progressive companies that are shifting away from the waterfall handover process, like I mentioned before, to be more collaborative approach, to have flat hierarchy, adopting an agile, empowering teams to make their own decisions, to be autonomous. This is where product managers and designers are working together as pairs, and this is where designers are embedded in the product development teams, and they work in a really great collaboration between product, design, and tech. And this is where the gold comes, where the amazing ideas can come, again, from collaboration, from diversity of thinking. So this is how, together you can define the objectives, what are the expected outcomes, look at the metrics, understand how you're going to measure your progress, and so on. I believe the designers should really upskill in product management, and I think product managers should upskill in design. And then in this way, you can do amazing things. Design thinking works best in collaboration. And when you bring diverse group of people from different parts of the business with different experiences and different points of view, you will come with really, really innovative and amazing solutions. Now let's talk about what design thinking really is, so you can start adopting and start applying that. So the design thinking process have 5 steps. Start with empathize, and then we move to define, ideate, experiment, and test. And now let's go over each one of those. All right. So the first one is empathize. And this guy here is Tim Brown. He's the CEO of IDEO, and IDEO is a great company from the US, and they pretty much conducted the term design thinking about 20 years ago. So design thinking is something that was adopted many years ago. I think it was about the 60s, probably even more than that. It was just not really defined as design thinking. But this company created that created the process around that and started to communicate it across the world. So if you are interested in taking a course or something like that, I will recommend you to have a look at IDEO. They're doing amazing things, and they have great case studies there that are for free as well. So empathize is really all about understanding the people that are going to use the solution. And the best way to do it is using exploratory research. This is the key here. So what is exploratory research? Like I said before, right? We have our biases when we go into empathize, and when we go to understand what we need to understand from our customers. Exploratory research means that we want to become explorers. It means that we want to find things, new things that we don't know of. It means that we need to go with open mind and explore what we don't know. And the best way to do that is by having one-on-one conversations with people. So we need to understand, first of all, of course, who are those users? Who are those customers that are using our products and our solutions? Now, sometimes the customer is not going to be the end user. At PageUp, where I work, it's a B2B company, and the person that is buying the system from the client side usually is not the person that is going to use the system at all. So their needs and their behavior and what they're trying to achieve will be completely different from the end user that is actually going to use the system. And this is really important to remember, because at the end of the day, who do we prioritize? Do we prioritize the user, or do we prioritize the buyer? This is a really good question, and it depends on what we're trying to achieve. However, it's important to empathize with both, because at the end of the day, we need to sell our product, right? We want someone to buy it, because if no one is going to buy it, we're not going to get any revenue generation. You know, we don't have a product, we don't have a company. So it is important to prioritize those people. However, if we're not prioritizing the end user, and we're not thinking about their needs, they're not going to use the system. So at the end of the day, they're going to abandon our product or our service, and we're not going to have a product as well. So it's a really interesting balance of what needed to do, and it really depends on what you're trying to do as well. So if you're trying to add a new feature to your product, for example, you don't really need to think about the buyer if they don't need to buy an additional feature. You need to think about the user. So this is who you're going to prioritize. If you're trying to add a new product that is going to add a pricing, let's say, to your contract, yes, absolutely, you need to prioritize the buyer probably first, because you need to see if they're going to pay money for this new product. So have a think about it when you go and start to approach that. All right, so just going back to the one-on-one conversations, what do we want to do? We want to learn about, first of all, who those people are. What problems are they facing in their day-to-day job? What are they trying to do? How are they trying to solve those problems? So if they have a problem, what are they trying to do to solve it today? It can be within the system, and it can be outside of the system. It can be with competitors. It can be in any way possible. You want to hear about this story, because it's not just about the system and how they're solving the problem in the system today, right? So I'm sure a lot of you heard about usability testing, and usability testing is great, but it really focuses on the current product and the current system. What you want to do here is to not think about the system, just to think about those people and what they're trying to achieve. Now, some people are using surveys to do those things, but surveys are not good enough. And the reason why is that, first of all, there is really a limitation in what you can ask in surveys. If you want to ask a very open-ended question and ask people, what are you trying to achieve here? There is a very small percentage of people that will make the effort to actually write their very long answer. All right, that's the first thing. And the second thing, when they are writing this answer and they telling you what the problem is, you cannot go back to them and ask them, can you elaborate on that a little bit more? And can you tell me why that's actually a problem, right? So it's really all about having the conversation. It's all about understanding people and asking them. There is a rule that we call the 5 whys, is asking them why. Not in an annoying way, but really in an open-minded way, because you actually genuinely care and want to learn about why they're trying to do something, right? So if you work in e-commerce, for example, you can ask them, can you tell me about the last time that you bought something online? And they will tell you the story, and ask them, okay, so why did you choose, this provider, for example? Can you tell me about the experience? How did it go? What did you get stuck somewhere? Tell me about that. Why didn't you finish your purchase? Tell me about that, right? And it's all about being, very nice, very empathetic, and very genuine and very caring about what people are telling you. You want to hear their story. You want to hear about their journey. You want to hear about what they're trying to do. This will give you an amazing understanding on people and how you can solve those problems. And it's really all about understanding people. So you want to speak to them, you want to build a relationship with them, and you want them to start trusting you as well. If you build a good relationship with customers and they see that you genuinely care about them, they will stay your customers, because caring is probably the most important thing. People want to know that you care about them, and they're not just numbers for you. It's not just about the bottom line. It's about servicing those people. All right, so this is the first part. This is about empathize. This is about understanding people, understanding their problems, and it's really about focusing on those problems. Now, I do have a few tips here if you go and do research. And I just want to say, as a starting point, research is not an easy thing to do. Okay, going to an interview is not an easy thing to do. It takes time to be good at it, but give it a try. Just try. You can try with a friend first. You can try internally with a teammate. You know, and practice. It takes time to practice and to be really, really good at it. But don't be scared. It's a great way to start, and you will learn from, you know, from your experience. You will learn from what you're not doing very, very well, and you'll change it for next time. And it's really all about learning and becoming better. So a few of the tips here. First of all, be open-minded. Like I said before, avoid your biases, put them on the side. Don't think that you know what the answer is. And even if you think you know what the answer is, it's fine. But still be open-minded and give people the space to tell you exactly what they want to tell you. Create a safe environment. It's really important. People are not going to be honest with you if they can't trust you. So you want to make the environment that they can trust you, and you can actually tell them, I'm not judging you whatsoever. I just want to learn. I just want to know who you are, and I want to learn about your problem, about what you're trying to achieve, and be genuine and be empathetic. Ask open-ended questions. Don't ask them, you're trying to do this, right? That's not a good question. That's not an open-ended question. Instead, ask them, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? Please tell me about your day. Please tell me about the last time that you use our system or our product, or maybe a competitor product. Can you tell me about that? What went well? What didn't go well? Listen more and talk less. Give people the space to think about the answer and ask them those questions, but and prompt them to give you more and more and more information. It's all about what they're telling you. It's not about what you're asking them. What not to do. Don't lead the subject to a conclusion, right? So don't tell them, you know, like I said before, this is what you're trying to do, right? Don't ask them a yes or no question. Just give them a very, very open question and let them answer this question the best way they can. Don't complete their sentences because it's really rude to do that. And even if you have, which is take me to the third point, if there is an uncomfortable silence, that's fine. Sometimes people need a minute or two to think about their answer. Maybe they don't remember when was the last time they used the product. Maybe they need a second to think about how they're gonna position their answer. That's okay. You know, just wait and nod and smile and show them that you care, and that's 100% fine if they need to take their time, and give them the space to answer the question. And don't go off unrelated tangent. And this is an important one. Why? Because sometimes you'll ask a question and then people will start talking about something else, or they tell you, you know what? Yeah, that's a fine question, but actually I want to talk about, you know, a problem that I have with your system. So, and I have that a lot. So what do you want to do there? You want to give them, you know, a second to think about, to tell you what's bothering them in a different part of the system. But then you say, okay, thank you so much for this information. I'll take a note here, but can we go back to the original question? Okay, great. Can you expand on that a little bit more? And can you tell me a story about the original question? Again, it's really, really important. Otherwise, your interview is not going to be very effective, and you're not going to get the outcome that you're trying to get. All right, let's move on to the second step. This is define. So once you collected all the insights for the empathize stage, and sorry, I didn't tell you that before, but when you go and empathize with people, you want to interview usually between 5 to 10 customers with the thinking that they're all, you know, the same persona. If there are different personas, you want to interview between 5 to 10 people from each persona. All right, this will give you a good enough understanding of the problem that people are trying to face. If you see many different problems for each one of those people, you probably need to interview a few more people. You cannot interview 100, 200 people. If you can, that's great, but probably it's not going to happen. So so interview those you know, 5 to 10 people from each one of those personas, and you can complement that with a survey as well. That's okay, but don't just depend on the survey. So in the define stage, once you collected all the insight from the empathize stage, it's time to synthesize the finding. You'll most likely find many problems that people are facing, right? And you can go into analysis paralysis phase and say, wow, there are, you know, hundreds of problems here. What am I going to do? How am I going to approach that? So it is really important that you start to organize and make sense of the data. And understand what is the real core problem that you're trying to solve. All right, and understand what is the value of solving this problem as well. And you know, it can be a very small problem, it can be a very large problem. So what you need to do is really to prioritize that based on the value to the business and the value to the customer by solving this problem. And also the feasibility that it will of solving this problem as well. So it's all about the balance, right? You don't have to choose the biggest problem to solve or you know, the most concerning problem, because sometimes the biggest problem will take you a very long time to solve. Sometimes it will be a medium problem or even a small problem that can give you a huge win just because it will take you, let's say, 2 weeks to solve it. So think about that. And this is why it's really good to bring people together and prioritize those problems together. All right, so you choose one problem that you want to focus on. And most of the time, by solving just one problem, you will be able to solve many problems as well. But it is important to focus on one problem only, because otherwise you will go off tangent and the team will be very, very confused. And believe me, I have experience in that. And I've seen people going into ideation while each one of them is trying to solve a different problem. So it is important that everyone will align around what is the problem we are going to solve here, which is all based on the research that we've done previously. So here you choose the one problem. This is the core problem. You can use Post-it notes. You can use whatever way that is working for you. If you're working remotely now, a Trello board is great to do that. You can also use Miro if you have that. It really doesn't matter whatever tool you use, as long as everyone have access to that, and as long as people can collaborate in that and you know, and vote on the problem and make this decision together and say, okay, this is the problem we're going to solve. This is the problem we're going to focus on. Great. Now we are aligned as a team, and let's move on to step 3. And step 3 is ideate. All right. So we want to come up with as many ideas as possible. Now, what I want to talk about here is is for you to run a workshop or to find someone that will run a workshop around ideation. I'm sure a lot of you heard or have been involved in a brainstorming session. So I just want to explain the difference between brainstorming and ideation. Brainstorming is usually when a group of people coming into a room together and say, okay, we have a problem here, let's try to solve it together. Great. And one person will come up with a solution and say, okay, I have this idea. What do you think, guys? And then other people will say, oh yeah, that's a really great idea. Great. Okay, let's start to, you know, to expand on this idea. This is what usually happens, right? Maybe one person will say, you know what, I have a different idea. Okay, let's look at this different idea. But what usually happens is that you will come up with 1 or 2 ideas, and everybody in the room will be fixated on this idea. And if this idea came from, you know, the senior person in the room, it will be very difficult for the more junior people to debate with this person and to say, you know what, I don't actually think it's a really great idea, right? It will be difficult for people to do that. And this is why it's really important to do ideation instead of brainstorming. In ideation, what we do, and you can see here in this photo, this is actually from the design thinking workshop that I mentioned before. So this is Wendy. She is a tech lead at PageUp. And what the team has done here is for every single person in the team, I think they had about 8 people in this team specifically. Each one of them came up with their own ideas individually, right? They had some individual time. They took like 10 minutes, and every person thought about different ideas that they can that might be suitable to solve the problem that they have defined. And then they brought they presented those ideas to the rest of the team, and the rest of the team gave them feedback or asked them questions. And this is what everyone has done. And as you can see here, there are little dots of votes. Yeah, if you can see it here, which means that after everyone present the idea, every single person in the room then had 2 votes to vote on the best idea that they thought were, the best. And this is how they prioritize those ideas. Now you can do many rounds of those, and you can refine those ideas more, and you can do another ideation. There are many ways to do ideation, but I think the important thing here is to come up with as many ideas as possibly can, because the first 1 to 5 ideas will be the more not very innovative, right? There will be the ideas that everyone's thinking of. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. Of course, this is a good way to do it. Maybe because we've seen it with competitors, maybe because it's like, a no-brainer. But the innovative ideas, the things that we don't really necessarily think of, will come probably a little bit later. And they will also come from collaboration. So if I will come with an idea and then someone will challenge this idea and will ask me, but actually, did you think about that? And did you think about a different way to do it? Then it will prompt thinking of me that maybe I can expand on my idea a little bit more and make it maybe a little bit more creative. It's really also important in an ideation session to bring a diverse group of people. Those people don't have to be part of your core product team. They don't have to be involved in the initial research, not at all, right? As long as you know and you communicate what the problem is, bring a diverse group of people. It can be someone from HR, it can be someone from finance. It really doesn't matter. You want to bring people with different experiences and different ways of thinking, so they can bring different ideas into the table. Okay, so in this stage, like I said, you come up with as many ideas as you can, and you prioritize them and you choose the best 1, 2, or 3 ideas. Don't choose more than 3 ideas because it will be very difficult for you to progress with that. So once you choose your ideas, what you want to do is you want to move into experiment. An experiment is really all about helping us to solve disagreement and to learn, right? Experiment is, first of all, it's about learning. And the way you do it is you build the minimum that is needed to validate or disprove your idea. And it can be a paper prototype, it can be a physical solution, it can be a banner that you put on your website, it can be an A/B testing, it can be many ways. And it really doesn't matter what it is, as long as you can test your idea as quickly as possible with real people. And we'll talk about, because this is actually step 5, which is all about the testing the idea. Now here you can see, and I put this photo because I really wanted to show you that experiments can be done remotely as well. I ran this workshop, it was probably 2 months ago, and we had 17 people here participating in this experiment workshop. And what we've done is I facilitated the whole group, and then we had small breakout rooms when we had 4 people in each one of those groups with a facilitator as well. And they've done something exactly like the ideation, where they came up with ideas of how to run an experiment. And then they took all those ideas, they refined them a little bit, and then they brought it back to the team, and then we all collaborated on those ideas. And the ideas were, how are we going to run the experiment around those ideas that came up in the ideation phase, right? So in running experiment, you can be super creative as well. It's really fun to run an experiment workshop. So I really encourage you to do that and to run the experiment again, to run the workshop with as many people as you can. This is a super diverse group of people at PageUp, and I was so thrilled about it. We came up with amazing ideas here and amazing experiments that we ran later. So that was a really successful workshop. This is the last phase. of the design thinking, which is all about testing, right? And this is actually part of the experiment phase. But testing is why it's a different phase, because it reminds you that when you test, you test it with real users. You can't just test it internally. It's absolutely fine, by the way, to first test it internally, because you want to see if the experiment is working well, if you don't have any issues, any bugs with it. But then it's super important to test it with real users. You can actually go back to those people that you interviewed at the beginning and tell them, hey, I have a solution to your problem now. Do you want to be a tester? Do you want to be a user? Sorry, not a tester, a participant. Do you want to be a user in my experiment? And I wanna understand what you think, right? So you can run usability testing with him. You can you can show them a prototype, whatever way it is. Or if you do an A/B test, you just put it live on your product, on your app, on your website, and you see how people react to it. All right, so we covered really all the 5 steps of design thinking. And I know I spend a lot of time on empathize, because this is really the most important step. If we remove the empathize, we're just not sure what is the real problem that we're trying to solve. And if we're not solving the right problem, it doesn't really matter if we have a very amazing solution. If we don't solve the right problem, our solution might be pretty, might be amazing and great and very usable and nice looking and everything, but it's not actually going to service those people. It's not going to solve their problem, so they're just not going to adopt it. So it's really important to remember that. Now, also, I just wanted to remind everyone that, or to let you know actually that even though we have those numbers in those steps, this is actually not a linear process. So design thinking can be as fluid and as flexible as you need it to be, which means that you can go through the emphasize, through the define, and through the ideate. And let's say that in the ideation session, you realize that maybe you didn't come with the best ideas, or maybe something is not working very, very well, or you might be a bit confused, or people are not aligned on the problem, which means that you maybe need to stop here at phase 3 and go back to phase 1 or to phase 2. Maybe you just haven't defined the right problem. So maybe go back to phase 2 and say, okay, let's define the problem now. And let's make sure that we're all aligned on this problem. Or maybe you go into the experiment and you see that the experiment isn't working well. So you need to go back to empathize. So again, use this process as fluid as you need it to be, and choose whatever steps that you need. You don't have to use all the steps. If you already know a problem, if you're already sure because you collected enough information and it's a problem that you identified 3 months ago, you don't have to go through the emphasize phase again. You can start from ideate if you want to. That's absolutely fine, as long as you know that you're solving a real customer problem. So it's really important to remember that, because I know that a lot of people saying, oh, it's a linear process. You have to go through all those steps. It's really not. It's not a linear process. Use it. It's a tool, and you need to use it the best way it will serve you. All right. So we're about to really finish this talk, and I just want us to remember all those top benefits of design thinking. So first of all is alignment. Business leaders, product managers, designers, tech leaders, everyone can use design thinking and have a shared language and a tool set of design thinking that can confidently create better user experiences for the customers and for their employees as well. And it's really important to remember that, like I said, in the example that I gave you at the beginning, that can be applied to your team alignment, to employees engagement. It's actually really, really important while you're trying to solve something internally to utilize design thinking as well. The second thing is collaboration. It brings everyone into the process, and it gets everyone to take part of defining the solution, on understanding the problem and defining the solution together. And you will be amazed how people are excited to be part of that after they've done it once. Openness. Design thinking process help companies to solve problems with open minds and clear eyes. Like I said before, it removes our biases from the solution. Innovation. It encourages innovation by exploring many solutions for the same problem. Not just, the immediate solution that is coming to us. If we're going through this process, we can come up with amazing, innovative solutions that our competitors are not doing. So it is important to utilize that, because it's not just about one thing. It's really about alignment, collaboration, openness, and innovation, which will give you amazing, amazing results. All right, so really just to finalize this talk, we live in an era of experiences. They can be services, they can be products, they can be internal or external things, and for different audiences. And we all have very, very high expectations for those experiences because they're becoming more complex and because the evolution of technology. So there are new unmet needs, and our expectations are way, way higher. And us, I mean every single person. So as a result of that, we see a big change in the last few years, and it mainly happened in tech companies. So many businesses are starting to adopt design thinking in different parts of the business. It's in HR, it's in legal, it's in support, and I've seen that happen, and that's amazing. And of course, it happens in product management and in product development. The understanding that design thinking can help optimize those processes and improve their results is really, really exciting. And I really encourage you to be part of that and to adopt that as well. That's it. That is me. So thank you all very much for joining. It's been a pleasure. Again, my name is Lital, and I think we will move to Q&A.
Thank you for the brilliant session, Lital. Really great insights. And as you see, we already have questions lined up for you in the Q&A window.
Great.
So let's start taking them. Give me a moment.
Sure. Maybe I'll just stop sharing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So audience, please ask your questions in the Zoom Q&A window or on the LinkedIn thread. So let's take this first question from Vivekanandan. Design thinking can be used only for designing UX, UI, or it can be used for solving any user problem?
Yes, absolutely. It can be applied for any user problem. UX and UI is really kind of the traditional way of, or what makes sense the most, but it can be applied for basically everything.
Right. So the next question is from Alejandro. Thanks for the amazing presentation. In the ideation process, what tips do you have to avoid discussions there? Some people just love discussions and feeling important. How do you avoid that?
I love this question. So what we usually do when I run design thinking, we have 3 rounds when we go into ideation. So usually we'll book about 2.5 to 3 hours for this session, and we explain to people exactly what are we going to run. So we're doing 3 rounds. When in each of the rounds we will have 10 or 15 minutes for individual work, and then 10 or 15 and 10 minutes to share those ideas. And then again, we'll go to a second round and 10, 15 minutes for individual work and 10 minutes to bring people for more discussion, to bring it back to the group. Now it depends how many people you want. Usually what I do, I run an ideation session with about 15 people, and then I break them into small groups of 5 people. And when we do the individual work, they're basically not allowed to speak to each other. So even if it's done in a physical space, you can be there and actually see if they're not speaking to each other. If it's done remotely, it is important to have a facilitator per group. So the facilitator is there actually supporting the team, helping people to understand exactly what they need to do. But it's also important to make sure that people are not speaking in this individual work time. You want to give people the space and you encourage them, have a think about it. You know, what is the best way? Think about your old experience and so on. Now, also what we do in the ideation is not just to think about our own personal opinion. I mean, absolutely, ideas will come from us, but it's also really important to prompt the thinking by showing different trends, for example. So what we do, we bring around 20 to 50 images of different trends, and it depends on what you're trying to solve. So if you're trying to solve, for example, I work in the HR tech space. So, you know, if you're trying to solve something for recruitment, we'll bring things that are relevant to recruitment, just images that are relevant to recruitment, which it prompts different thinking. Now, it really doesn't matter what those images mean. What matters more is the connection that you're making in your brain for it. So, you know, just find some photos or some images online and just bring them as prompt. And that can be, you know, tech images, and then can be different people's images, you know, groups of people. It can be about, again, it really depends on the industry that you're looking at. But, you know, sometime I'll bring photos that, you know, from our images that are about, you know, vintage objects. And I'll bring things that are very kind of, you know, sci-fi as well. And I'll bring those things together, and, you know, people will try to see, oh, okay, there is kind of, you know, old world and new world. How can I combine those things together in my solution? And it's amazing how people will be more creative when they have that. And when they can think about something completely out of their box, because they haven't even, you know, thought about approaching the problem in a completely different way. So, and we also do a round which we call the 180. And the 180 means that avoid all the constraints that you might have and think about what you can do if you have no constraints. And the constraints are usually the system. Right? I think a lot of people have, you know, a big monolith, a big tech debt. A lot of the companies, a lot of, you know, tech companies that exist for, you know, 10 plus years, they have that. And a lot of the time people say, we can't solve this problem, or, you know, we have those technical constraints. It's really important to avoid those constraints just for the ideation session, because you might find out that actually the constraint that you thought you have is not really a constraint. So this is really the three round that we do, and the individual work is really important. So take time and say, people, now you have 10 minutes to do individual work. Please don't speak with each other. It's important that everyone will have the space. And then when people come in together, it's important that every single one of them will share their idea. So you can call them out and you say, you know, hey, Andrew, can you share your idea? Thank you very much. Hey, Michelle, can you share your idea? And so on and so on. So every person, even the more junior people, even the more introvert people, will still have the space to share their idea, because you can't know who the best idea will come from, right? It can come from the person that only joined 2 weeks ago, and they're very junior, and, you know, they're very shy. They can have the most amazing ideas. So it's really important to encourage that collaboration and people speaking up.
Beautifully answered, Lital. Thank you so much. And Alejandro, I hope that answers your question. So the next question, oh, I see so many coming up already. Thank you for the participation, audience, loving the enthusiasm. So let's see how many questions we can take here. So let's go to the next question by Subhash. What should one do when the leadership does not want to test out the ideas, but rather want the product managers to deliver the best product, which gives an increase in revenue or any other goal they have in mind, and are not really supportive of testing out ideas? Especially in case of startups trying to hit it big in a small amount of time due to lack of budget and time.
Yeah. So look, I think in startups, it's actually really important to test the ideas. Because, and I understand urgency. Everyone has urgency and we need to release something very, very quickly. Sometimes you will do it with an MVP, and an MVP can be an experiment in itself. So we actually have a business unit, sorry, at PageUp, and it works like as an individual business unit. It actually works as a startup. So they release 2-3 times a day. And sometimes they release very, very small things and they use it as an experiment. So they will see how people adopt it. And if it's not working, they will leave it there for 1 or 2 weeks. And if people are not adopting it, they will remove it and will try something else. So you can put things in production for testing purposes. I mean, that's fine to do that as well. But I think the important thing is to tell people or to tell management that if you're not testing your ideas and you're just, delivering software, you just don't know how that's going to work. And that's actually more costly at the end. It is important to test the idea because, and again, it depends on the time that you have. And I think in a bigger companies, sometimes people will take 3, 6, 12 months to work on a project without getting it to the hand of users and without testing it, which can be so problematic because you can spend 12 months building something that no one is going to use. I was actually seeing that happening. I wasn't part of that. That was just before I joined PageUp as a company, and they actually spent 12 months working on what they thought was a very innovative solution. And they built the most amazing app. And like I said before in the talk, it was very beautiful, a beautiful, beautiful app, but no one wanted to use it. Why? Because they solved their own problem. And second, because they didn't test it with customers. So even though they have the app there, they actually had only 5 people downloading and using the app, only 5, right? Which is horrible. So at the end of the day, they spent 12 months, a lot of money developing something that no one is working on. So I think if you can also show that, if you are building something and people are not adopting it, you can show the result of it and say, because we're not testing, because we're not validating, this is the outcome that we get. So it's actually a waste of money and a waste of effort. And business leaders love bottom line and they love to save money. So I think it is important to talk about, the ROI of design thinking, of testing, of finding the right problem and solving it correctly. I hope that answered the question.
All right. So the next question is, how can we make sure we are working on the root cause problem if we use voting, not data, to know which problem to work on?
Yes, so that's a great question. So you should use both, right? So I assume that you're using data. It should be a collaboration of both qualitative and quantitative data, right? So you're going through the exploratory research, you identify a subset of problems, and then you can go and look at the data. It can be product usage, it can be CSAT, satisfaction score, it can be surveys, it can be whatever. And there you can see, okay, what is actually the volume of the problem? But the voting is really more about, if we have, let's say that we define 5 really big problems that customers are having, how are we going to prioritize that? Now, if there is 1 or 2 clear problems, and the data shows you those are the clear problems, yes, you need to prioritize those problems. However, many times you will identify that you have many problems to solve, and then you can get lost in the data, and you say, I'm not sure what I should approach first. So the decision can come also from the business vision and the business direction. And the business can tell you, look, this is what we want to prioritize because it will give us the best ROI or for whatever reason. But if you don't have that and you need to decide, Sometimes voting can help you to decide that if all problems are equal. But also the voting, we're using it more in ideation. And you know what? We're not sure that's the best problem to solve. But the good thing about it is because we're bringing a diverse group of people, and people that have tech understanding, and people from product management that have the understanding of cost and understanding of value to the business. This is how we can prioritize that as well, based on everyone experience and their role as well. Right, and you want to bring someone from legal, for example, and they can tell you, look, we can't actually do that. It's not aligned with our security rules or whatever it is. So it is important to have different opinions there that can drive the to us all to a better decision.
Thank you. I hope we are good with time, Lital. I know it's past 2 a.m. for you, and can we take a few
That's
more
all right.
Thank you for that. Right. So let's take this next question from Janet. It's a very interesting one. Are there tools specifically for problems that result in competing issues? Often the solution of one problem just causes different or new problems. Any thoughts on tools that help identify this?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Sure. Are there tools specifically for problems that result in competing issues? Often the solution of one problem just causes different or new problems. Any thoughts on tools that help identify this?
That is an interesting question. I think it's important to, well, if you're solving a problem, it's important to not create a different problem. So I'm just interested to understand, how that's coming. I think that the main thing that I can see, from kind of a design lens, that sometimes we're solving problem in isolation and we're not thinking about the whole experience. And if we are mapping out the whole experience and we identify a problem, it really shouldn't create. So maybe the tool, if that's what you're asking, I think a really important tool is customer journey map. So customer journey map is really about understanding the journey that a customer is doing when they're using your solution, your product, or your system. So from the very beginning of them using your solution until the very end of them using your solution. So, when they're just signing in and whatever they do there. So that's a really known design tool. And here you map really the whole experience and you identify where the problems are. And I think sometimes what we see, and I've seen it a lot, is that the problems are mainly when they need to move from one step to another step. Or, if you are looking at different touch points that they have, sometimes they have different touch points. Let's say they use the product, but then they need to speak to someone from support for whatever reason. Or they move from, integrating the new solution, and then they need to start, actually using this new solution. A lot of the time between the different touch points, you will see where the biggest problems are. And when the different departments are working on those touch points in isolation, in my experience, this is where the biggest problems come, because you have different people solving different problems and no one is actually thinking about the whole journey of the customer. So for designers, this is a very well-known tool. And I think it's really important for product managers to use it as well. And it aligns beautifully with design thinking. And this is where you map out all the problems. So it is really important to not create another problem, especially not to the customer, while solving one problem. So maybe that's the tool to explore, the customer journey map.
Right. So I hope, Janet, that answers your question. For the last question, Lital, I'd request you to check the Q&A window. It's a little lengthy one, but it's got 3 folds to it. It's the third question from the last. I'll read it out either ways.
Yeah.
It's Abhishek Pal, if you can see from the bottom, third one. So, hello, amazing presentation, really insightful. He has a few questions. First one being, sometimes we don't have a team. This is usually true in this pandemic time. How do you propose a team of a solo UX designer ideate? Second part, ideation process is really useful, which connects the research to practical. Sometimes I feel stuck during this process. How can I get myself unstuck during such times? And the third part being a designer with over 15 years of experience, how do you see the UX design sector after the pandemic?
Great questions. Okay, so let's start with one. It is true. Sometimes we don't have teams. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people lost their job, and now a lot of companies have a team of one. It is important to collaborate with other people. So I think ideation, it doesn't have to be from designers. Like, designers are not the only one that should do the ideation, but what you should do is to facilitate the ideation session. This is usually what we do in my team. So I have a team of 10 people now. And when we do ideation, I actually ask, they work with different product teams. So the designer within this product team will usually facilitate the ideation, or maybe I will facilitate the ideation for them so they can participate in the ideation. And then it's really important to me to bring a balanced group of people together. So it's so very important to bring at least one product manager, at least one engineer. Really, really important, because they have a lot of understanding that designers don't necessarily have, mainly on the technical aspect and the ROI and the revenue that we'll get from ideas. But you can bring as many people as you can from different parts of the business, and your job will be more to facilitate. And I think with a team of one, for you to be effective, it will be really, really important for you to be the facilitator and to get other people to join you and take part of what you do. And I'll give you actually an example now. One of the teams working on a brand new product, and they don't have a lot of time to do discovery, right? And discovery is really the first part, which is the empathize and the exploration. So what they do, they actually bring a group of people together, and they get all of them to take part of the exploration. It's not just the UX designer. I have the UX designer, she's managing all of that, but we have developers there being part of the exploration phase. We have product managers, of course, doing that. We also have 2 people from sales helping with the exploration, and 2 people that are customer success managers as well. And why? Because first of all, they have a really good connection with those customers. So it's easy for them because they already have this relationship with those customers. So they can go and have those conversations. And what we do, we help them to come up with really good questions to take to their clients and to ask them, and we'll join them a lot of the time. So it will help us to build a relationship with them as well. And I think today, which will actually take me to the third question, I think that the UX design sector, not necessarily part of the pandemic or not, I think the UX design role is kind of changing to really be more the conductor and the facilitator of creative solutions. So it's not just up to us to come up with the solutions. I actually don't believe the designers are the people that should come up with the solutions. I think they are the ones at the end to design the best solution, but to really facilitate and to extract this creativity in other people. And I think the pandemic, it's an interesting one. I know that in some sectors and in some countries, designers has been let go, unfortunately, but I don't think that it's not an important, that their role is getting less importance. I think actually the other way. I think that now with the problems that the world is facing, and designers are taking a huge part of that, I think actually the designer role is becoming and will become probably in the future more and more popular and more important. It will probably, though, take time, after all of us will be, beyond this pandemic. So I guess it will take a year or two, or however time it will take. But I'm actually very, very positive about the future of design.
Oops, sorry, I was on mute. I said thank you. And in view of the time constraints, we will have to end the Q&A here. Thanks for the participation, audience. It was great interacting with you all. And for any further questions and the questions that we weren't able to answer, please connect with Lital on LinkedIn or other mediums. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please, all of you, feel free to connect with me. You can just find my name, just write Lital Sherman. On LinkedIn, I am the only Lital Sherman in Australia, so it will be very easy to find me. And feel free to ask me questions. I love design thinking. I love talking about it, and I'm happy to reply to any single one of you. So please do it.
Great. And for the last part of the session, Lital will need your help here. Please help us declare the champion of curiosity, the best asked question for tonight's session. So if you can see the Q&A window, there are a few that we haven't answered, but just have a look at it and you can help us pick the best question.
All right.
There are a few in the answered one as well that we took it up.
Oh, so many great questions here.
We have so many questions, and then it's difficult for Lital to decide which one is the best one.
It is very, very difficult. Yeah. I will choose Zakaria Polit. The question is, what is the best way to introduce design thinking to an organization who is traditionally waterfall based? And it is actually a really good question.
Right. Should we expect an answer to that? Because I did not read that question out. If you could just, summarize this whole thing for us.
Yes. Let me just quickly give you. Look, design thinking can actually be done in waterfall as well, though it's not going to be very, very effective. I think that the best thing to do while you want to introduce design thinking is to start very, very small. So if you already work with a team, start with a small team and say, okay, I want to use it like an experiment. And if you actually say the word experiment, sometimes people will have more buy-in, because it means, okay, let's see if it's going to work. We're not committed to anything. It's just an experiment. So, try it and try on, to solve a very small problem as well. Like, don't try to solve a huge problem. And usually you will get buy-in from that if you tell people, look, there is a really great tool. It can help us reduce time, reduce effort, reduce cost. So, maybe we can try just on this little small problem to apply design thinking, and let's see how it goes. And if you can show them in this process that you created a better solution by using this process, or you reduce cost, or you reduce effort, I think that can be a big deal, right? And management, they love to see numbers, they love to see data, and they love to see the bottom line and how you save money. And let's be honest, people love to save money, right? If you can show them that you save money by applying design thinking, I can guarantee that at least some of them will buy into design thinking. But it's really all about being courageous and trying and asking to do it. And if they don't agree, try another time and try until they will buy in. And I had that as well in my experience. And it took me actually a year, not at PageUp, before that in a company. It took me a year to apply design thinking in the organization. But at the end of the day, I was able to do that. So it's about, persistence and to give it a try and to find small opportunities to apply it. And good luck with that.
Congratulations, Zakaria, for the best asked question, and we'll connect with you shortly. So we have enjoyed having you with us, Lital. It's been a complete pleasure. Please accept this certificate of appreciation from the Institute. So if you scan the QR code on the certificate, it will take you to a dedicated Hall of Fame page that we have created for you with the recording of this video session. Please share it within your
Great.
network, and we will be sharing the webinar recording on the YouTube channel as well. We are grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and amazing insights drawn from your years of research and experience in the industry. I'm certain that our audience will definitely benefit from the methods you suggested and get ahead in their career. Thank you once again for joining us, Dal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you also very much. I really enjoyed that.
And audience, thank you for joining in. It was great interacting with you all. Do not forget to register for the upcoming webinars. With that note, I end tonight's session. Happy learning and stay skilled. Have a great night. Thank you, Lital. See you.
Bye. Thanks.